theory, we should be live. Hi everyone, I'm talking to author and filmmaker Kevin Strange, who has a reputation even worse than mine, which is something to be proud of, I think. We're going to be talking about various subjects. We'll probably be talking a bit about his writing, a bit about his films, but we're mostly here to talk about something I think we've both noticed in politics around the whole enterprise, really, films, comics, everything. There's this really kind of febrile shaming and so on that goes on. We both find that rather reprehensible, and both seem to have taken quite a lot of flack about it. So be something cool to talk about, I think. Say hi. If you can hear me.
I'm sorry, you're breaking up a little bit. Did you ask me a question?
Oh, sorry. Say hi.
Oh, hello, everyone. My name's Kevin Strange. Nice to be with you today. I appreciate you asking me on the show to talk about these things, because I think that the more of us that sort of speak out, stand up, and draw a line in the sand, the less power that these ideas the less that they're able to manifest in our communities.
Yeah. So before we really sort of kick off on that, you kind of, what would you describe it as? Bizarro? Is that right? Is that how you'd call it?
I write in a lot of genres. I primarily write in horror, science fiction, and a genre of fiction, a relatively new genre of fiction called bizarro fiction, which is described as the cult section of the video store. So anything that doesn't quite fit in with what would be classical horror, classical science fiction, but uses tropes from all of the above. So it would be like Lloyd Kaufman's trauma movies, or David Lynch's weird movies, the literary equivalent of that kind of stuff that doesn't quite fit in anywhere else. John Waters' shock comedy. That kind of stuff all gets filtered through the bizarro lens, and it's a growing genre that gets more and more legitimate attention every year that goes by. It will eventually be a genre in libraries and on Amazon and all the various places that classify fiction. It'll eventually get there.
Think of it as the sort of VHS version of the new weird.
Yes, absolutely.
In a way, that's how I think. That's how I think I'd describe it. But that's the kind of genre that you would think would be somewhat immune to politicking and all the rest of it. How on earth? Sorry,
it was when it started. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You cut out for a sec. Yeah, you're okay now. Carry on.
It was when it started, and there were titles that were designed to be shocking. Titles like Ask Goblins of Auschwitz, the Baby Jesus Butt Plug, Hitler in Wonderland, Cripple Wolf. There were a lot of very popular bizarro titles pre-2010 that went for the sort of John Waters, Lloyd Kaufman shock value, but as political correctness has grown, and as sort of the what I term the alt-left movement has built up steam, bizarro, like everything else, has been infiltrated by the politically correct police, and those types of titles are long gone now. You have very boring titles coming out, by and large, very harmless, very neutered, non-offensive type material that comes out that's still, it's weird, but all the bite is sort of gone, and that's no one particular person's fault, and that wasn't driven by the quote-unquote powers that be. That's just something that happens everywhere. It happens in the cosplay community, it happens in the independent film community, it happens everywhere. And like I said at the beginning of the show, I think the more of us that stand up and say, you can't just paint us as guilty by association, because we're standing up for freedom of expression and the ability to be offensive if we choose to be offensive. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't make us bad people. And beyond that, bad people get to create art just like good people do. And the sort of virtue signaling that's taken over because of the the social justice league sort of infiltrating everything on social media, they've developed this sort of false narrative that the only people that deserve a voice in the world are pure, sanctimonious, and people of strong virtue, and you have to prove you sort of have to go to social media church every day and kind of preach your virtue and sort of defend yourself every day about how good of a person you are. I saw recent events, the Orlando shooting. I actually saw an author have to defend herself and say, the reason I haven't come out and sort of thrown myself on the ground and in subservience and condemned the Orlando shootings as heinous, awful things is just because I've been too upset about it to speak publicly. I don't want anyone to believe that I condone those acts. And so it's, when we go to social media church, we sort of have to condemn all the evils of the world every day, because even not speaking about it is guilt by association.
Yeah, you're not allowed to just for it to become as a default that of course you condemn this shit because it's terrible. You have to be seen to be condemning it. It's not enough to be progressive or whatever. You have to constantly prove it to other people. It's interesting that you pointed to 2010 because that's when I felt that things started really shifting in my community. I work mostly in tabletop games, so I do some writing and things as well, and that's definitely when I saw it really starting to take over there. Where would you position yourself politically? I mean, what criticisms of this coming from? Describe yourself as being on the left, the right, outside all of that. Where would you put yourself?
Well, I'm not a political person at all in general. I'm very much focused on the lifestyle of arts and entertainment, and we're all sort of forced to take a stand, though. We have to tell people where we stand politically, and if I have to, if I'm put in a corner and with a gun to my head and told, where do you fall on the political spectrum, I would call myself a libertarian. I'm for small government because I don't want anyone. I don't want a nanny state telling me what to do, telling me how to live. And at the same time, I want as progressive of a social environment as possible. Gay people should be able to do anything that straight people can do, and all of the other progressive ideas that go, social progressive ideas that go into that don't involve government mandate over what we can talk about and what we can think about. So that's basically a libertarian perspective: is small government and the legalization of drugs and do unto others as you would have done unto yourself, I suppose. Don't hurt me, I won't hurt you, and we'll leave each other alone to live our lives in a pursuit of freedom and happiness.
I position myself probably a bit more to the left. I'm wary of the term libertarian because of its association with conservative economics and so on. But socially, we're definitely on the same page. Criticisms of this atmosphere that we find ourselves in come from my position on the left. Surely free expression, if anything, should be a liberal value. And yet it seems that these days the censorship that we encounter, the problems that we encounter, come not from the authoritarian right, but from the authoritarian. And like you said, it's not so imposing it. We're doing it to each other.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
That's right.
It really is bizarre. And there's a quote from a great movie called My Dinner with Andre, and I can't repeat the quote verbatim right now, but the movie is basically about a couple of intellectual friends that get together and have a dinner. One of them is more progressive and one of them is more conservative. One of them comes from a business-minded, corporate-minded, politically minded position, and the other comes from an artistic perspective. And he's sort of, in the artistic guy, he's sort of describing New York City in the context, but taken out of context, his quote about invisible prisons and that your neighbors being the prison guards is just so indicative of the entire world that we live in now. There was no internet when that movie was made, and so they could only speak from the perspective of their time. And in their time, you know, New York City was the flesh and blood equivalent of the internet. That's New York City was where you went in America to see a little bit of everybody and to experience a little bit of everything. And he was talking about the sort of moral constraints that we put on ourselves and policing ourselves in this invisible prison that we live in. And he talks about the citizens of New York City all talking about how they plan to leave and they don't want to be a part of the system anymore, but they never do. And I see people talk about that on social media all the time. Many people talk about wanting to leave social media, but they never do, because that's just sort of where everyone is.
Yeah, you can't really without. Well, you can, but you cause yourself a lot of problems. You know, you lose your access to an audience if you're a creator, you know, and people just expect you there to such an extent now that you can't really get away from it.
It's also one of those logical fallacies that if you leave, you must have done something wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Has this atmosphere affected your work at all? Whether in terms of finance or self-censorship? Have you found yourself second-guessing what you do at all? Or
yeah, it's actually made me a lot more money. It's made me a lot more popular, and it really makes me mad that that's the case. It makes me mad that I'm more well-known for my outspoken position as a defender of freedom of expression than for the actual words that I write, for the actual fiction that I write. I've been doing this. I wrote my first short film in 2003. And it's 2017, and I'm still more well known for what comes out of my mouth for the social commentary that comes out of my mouth than for the books that I write or the movies that I made. But to the people that are finally tired of being told what they can say and what they can't say, and what they can think and what they can't think, that I'm sort of developing this fan base of people that are supporting my fiction because of the positions that I take socially. And that's why I tell people on social media, the more you tell me to stop talking about this, the stronger I get. The more people are waking up to these. They're waking up to the realization that they can't say what they want to say, and for creators, that's a death sentence. When you're a creator and you have these sort of socially imposed boundaries with which you're able to work, it erodes the creative process. And you ask me, do I second guess what I write? I absolutely do not second guess what I write. And one of the reasons that I don't have to worry about it is because very few, none of my detractors read my fiction. They don't even know what's in between the covers of my books. And I laugh often, and I tell people, if you actually read my books, you would understand my position so much more clearly, because I take a very egalitarian approach to my fiction writing. There are the balance between male characters and female characters and characters of color and all this are very well balanced in my fiction, because I grew up in a multicultural community and was raised by women. And so just personally from in my own life history, my perspective is one of inclusion, not of exclusion. But nobody reads my fiction, none of the detractors anyway, read my fiction to even understand where my positions come from. In fact, I was just told on social media, as a new social media issue has sort of raised its head this week, I was told point blank, very, very, very few people understand your position on things. They just think you defend racism and sexism and homophobia. Well, the problem is, defending free expression means defending the ideas that you aren't comfortable with, defending the ideas that you don't support, because the easy stuff doesn't need defended. We don't need to defend writing gay main characters in our fiction anymore, because it's celebrated. You'll sell more books having a gay main character than not. But when I was in high school in the 90s, I was one of the only people that gay kids felt comfortable coming out to, because I didn't judge them and I didn't spill their, they were able to stay in the closet but have confidence. And had confidence in me that I would keep their secret and allow them a place to just talk through the confusion of their not the confusion of their sexuality. They knew exactly what their sexuality was, but the confusion of their community and their families that didn't accept that. I was an accepting voice in a time when that wasn't accepted. In a time where if you walked in or out of a gay bar, rednecks in trucks would drive by and throw rocks at you and call you a faggot. And that was socially acceptable. No one was going to stop them from doing that. That's when I was defending that freedom when it was difficult. And here I am on the other side now, having to defend people's ability to be controversial in ways that I don't personally agree with, but that I believe are valid points of view, that people just sort of pretend that because I don't like these people, they don't exist. They exist. They're your neighbors. They're your boss at work.
Yeah.
They're the people that work at the grocery store. And to pretend that they don't exist and sort of just shut out any sort of communication and dialogue with those people is the most dangerous thing you can do. And that's how you get Donald Trump. That's how you get a guy that will just will say anything he can to get a rise out of people, because there are millions upon millions of people that are just sort of in this place where their views, and I'm not even talking about racists and sexists and homophobes, I'm talking about normal conservative people, Christians, people that believe that, rightly or wrongly, that marriage is the sanctity of marriage is in danger, which I don't agree with. I think it's bullshit. The sanctity of marriage isn't bothered at all by what two men or two women choose to do with each other.
But they should be allowed to say that. Shouldn't they? They should be able to form that thought and put it out to people. And yet, if someone like you or me speaks up for someone having that right, it's taken as though we're saying, as though we're agreeing with them,
and we have
defending their right to speak.
But that's sort of the mental virus that social justice creates. Is you're either willing to go on social media, prostrate yourself, and ask for forgiveness for being straight and white every single day, or you're part of the problem.
That's another thing that gets me, though. I mean, we got to this position of relative equality of people being able to be openly gay in the media and all the rest of it. We got there by fighting through free expression. These people have become the establishment, and they don't seem to understand how to become the. It's like they want to pull the ladder up behind them and deny anyone else that same where they are now.
Which is exactly what happened to them. Which is exactly what conservatives did to them when conservatives got all the power. And that's the thing, is it's this pendulum swing back and forth. That's this sort of spite and hatefulness that's sort of embedded in people, where when they get control, they believe it's their turn to create oppression. And that's where, if we swing this pendulum back and forth, we're going to go, it's just going to be, conservatives oppressing liberals and liberals oppressing conservatives, and everyone else in the middle sort of suffers because of it.
Have you lost any friends or had any accusations really leveled at you? I mean, this is why to not give a shit, which is why I started following you on Facebook and places. So I admire your ability to not give a damn, but I really have a hard time letting go of people that I now find myself on the opposite side of these arguments with, because, these people have been my friends for a long time. We agree on a lot of things, and yet this one point of disagreement seems to be enough to tear people apart. And then the people who are boosting and supporting me with on virtually nothing except their right to voice their opinion. Have you lost friends like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been a steady decline of creative liberals that are willing to show me support. And I've actually received messages from authors saying, I'm going to delete you from Facebook now. I just want you to know that I can't support your men's rights posts that you post daily. And so what I would be, what I post, I post sort of anti-feminism links and things, and that doesn't come from a hatred of women. That doesn't come from believing that men need rights. It comes from believing that that this third wave feminism is Marxist ideology that hurts everyone in the end, and is part of this totalitarian ideology. And we should support egalitarianism, not feminism. And that gets me, that gets me the cold shoulder from from the liberal creative types, but so many more sort of libertarian creative types and conservative creative types have sort of come into my fold now, and that's what I mean is I seem to get stronger the more I come out and speak about this stuff, because but it's not, I don't get support from the liberal creative community. They sort of ice you out, shut you out, and it doesn't matter how supportive you are of them. You know, I used to have this group of authors. It was about 4 or 5 authors that I called that I would sort of promote and say, like, if you like one of our books, you would like all of our books. And I have a fairly large social media reach, and I've been doing this for a long time. So every time I would plug these authors, I know it was helping them in some small way at least. And these authors are some of the ones that eventually tell me, like, I don't want to be associated with you anymore because you support men's rights. As though the idea that men deserve rights, first of all, is a bad thing. And second of all, that condemning these totalitarian ideologies somehow means that I don't support the rights of women, or that I don't support the rights of the gay community. And it's absurd, and it's these sort of mental viruses that run rampant when you allow social justice to take over, when you allow this stuff to become the norm.
So it's like yeah, like you say, it's egalitarian. You want everyone to have the same rights and opportunities. Which in some people's eyes would make you a feminist. But then if you oppose, say, or we've had a big problem with porn censorship here in the UK recently with changes to the law and so on. And a lot of that's been pushed by this kind of weird alliance between a conservative government and sex-negative feminism. You criticize the feminist aspect of that and suddenly you're the devil, you know, even though you believe in equality. It's very, very strange place to be in.
Well, that's because, you know, feminism pushes the ideology of equality of outcome, which is controlled by, you know, someone has to control that outcome. It becomes, you know, like I said, it's a totalitarian ideology where the state or the government controls the outcome of people's lives, as opposed to giving them, you know, equal opportunity to achieve whatever they want to achieve in life, while leaving the outcome to chance and to hard work and to, you know, to tenaciousness. Instead, they try to take control of the outcome, and it's disastrous. And every time you see that throughout history, it ends in millions of people starving to death.
Yeah, if there is a place in that, I am more of a socialist than you, I guess. But I would say it's in providing that equal opportunity. So investing in education so that everyone has opportunity to fulfill, you know, their best potential. That's where you should be and not create quotas and that sort of thing, which unfortunately seems to be the approach that people have taken. So you got any ideas on solutions for this? I mean, what can we do? It just seems like we just get cut out of these communities. You know, even though, say, you and me appear to have liberal viewpoints, get cut out of these liberal communities that may need to hear our dissenting voices, and so they end up pushing people like you and me into the arms of conservatives. And like you said earlier, that's how you get Brexit on this side of the pond. So how do we keep lines of communication open, break down these bubbles, or do we just have to create new bubbles and new structures? Do you have any idea?
Well, I think that conversations like this are working towards that end, and more and more people are waking up to these types of conversations where people can say, "Wait a minute, I can support equality and I can support freedom of expression all at the same time." There are people that sort of take this centrist, moderate ground that you don't have to throw your lot in with Brexit or Donald Trump, and you don't have to throw your lot in with crazy social justice warriors. There are other voices and there are other places that we can go. And I don't necessarily think that we should build separate communities, because then we sort of become just a third version of what's happening, where we push out people that don't support our ideologies, and where we only include people that do support what we you know, the things that we talk about, we're just sort of become part of the problem at that point. What we do is, outside of these bubbles, we continue to speak honestly. We continue to not, you know what, I just encourage people to speak up. I encourage people to speak up and speak out, and don't allow the fear and threat of being ostracized from any small clique or community. Don't let that be enough to silence your voice, because we live in a world. So you're a tabletop game creator, and I'm a writer. I've found more success, and I personally know more authors that have found success self-publishing than any of the people that are involved in these like small cult-like communities that sort of say, if you don't follow the rules, if you don't talk like we talk, if you don't think like we think, then you won't have the success we have. Well, 99% of the people in those communities don't have any success anyway. They're the financial support system of those communities. They're the ones buying the books, or in your case, the tabletop games and whatnot, whether it be music or film or whatever the creative endeavor. These communities sort of feed off of their followers, while telling their followers that if they go anywhere else, they won't have success there either. And so we have these authors that they stay quiet, and they stay sort of complacent to these ideologies because they're afraid they won't have, there's no opportunity for success outside of that. But now in this environment, we're almost at 2017, I see no more powerful tools than self-publishing tools. Self-publishing in fiction used to be the bastard child that you had locked in the attic and never spoke about. It was only for people that were illiterate and couldn't find publishing opportunities elsewhere. Well, today, in my opinion, those small press publishing opportunities only come with constraints, only come with weight holding you down and stifling your creativity. And the best place to go is through self-publishing avenues, because you have complete and total freedom. And I know people that are making a very solid living off of writing fiction, writing novels, in a climate where you're told that no one makes money writing novels anymore, because the sort of mid-list publishing market has had the bottom fall out of it, and there is no money in the small press anymore. There isn't, period. There isn't. But there's much money to be made in self-publishing. And when you're your own boss, when you're outsourcing your editing to a third party that doesn't even want to be listed in the credits of your books, when you're outsourcing the cover art to third parties that don't even require credit in the book, they don't care about your social media reputation. They don't care what people are saying about you on the internet. You're paying them money. You're getting a service done. It's basically anonymous. And so your reputation is whatever you want it to be. And that's how I've survived. That's how I've survived speaking up and speaking out, is because I removed myself from any opportunity for people to blacklist me. I blacklisted myself, basically, and I encourage others to do the same. Don't be silenced because you don't.
It's a whole 1,000 true fans thing.
Yeah,
1,000 true fans thing. You can get 1,000 people, then you can get by.
Right, absolutely. So that's what I have to say about that. I encourage people to speak up and speak out, and we can push. We're going to have to speak up and speak out for the sort of Christian right that's about to come back into popularity. We're all gonna be back on the same side within 2 years anyway, because we're gonna be fighting for gay rights again. We're gonna be fighting for we're gonna be fighting against sex censorship and all these other things when conservative Christians come back into popularity. We're all gonna be standing on the same side of the line anyway. So we might as well get comfortable with each other now.
Yeah, to try heal some rift, or pen accurately. Back together, give them a common enemy again to fight, yeah? That's interesting idea. I guess it might like that, but there's just so much bad blood. I'm not sure whether people will come together that quickly or easily.
Well, I think a lot of it is disingenuous. on the surface anyway. I think a lot of it is empty virtue signaling to show the powers that be that they're complacent and compliant. And as soon as there's no need to do that anymore, I don't think that the blood is as bad as you think it is. I think it's kind of phony. I don't think there's a lot of it under the surface. I think people just cry racism because that's just the thing to cry right now. And as soon as it's not the thing to say anymore, they'll stop saying it.
Well, it's lost its power, really, hasn't it? Already, racist, misogynist, all this. People just don't seem to care anymore. I think they're bad. You should use these terms where they're appropriate, because they are were such powerful terms. Now they don't. If I hear someone called a racist, sexist, misogynist, or accused of something these days, my immediate reaction is now it's skepticism. Really? I'm not sure about this.
But it should have always been that, shouldn't it?
To look at things.
Shouldn't we always be skeptical?
Yeah, it should have. I'm more skeptical now. I don't trust it at all. It's a weird position to be in, because you want to trust people when they tell you that they've been hurt or something. You want to believe them. You want to help. You're empathetic. But it's harder and harder to do that, and we've culturally cried wolf so loudly for so long now that, like you said, these terms these are important terms, they're powerful terms, and they're terms meant to help people, and they no longer help people. Now they've been weaponized and they're meant to hurt people. And being skeptical of them is sort of shows your moral compass, and shows that you are a good person, because you see that these are weapons used against people, and your instinct is to protect people that are having weapons pointed at them. That's a good thing. It's a good thing to feel that way, to feel that skepticism. It means that you're without having to virtue signal it and without having to spread it all over the internet, that you're a good person and a morally strong individual. It is dangerous, though. I mean, you look at these situations like, I don't know, one kid wears a sombrero to a Halloween party and everyone's shrieking racist, like the 70s remake of Body Snatchers or something. And it's like, he's not a racist, in a costume for a party, he's drunk, he's drinking loads of tequila and going out for burritos or whatever. Who the fuck cares? And then later on, you have actual Sieg Heiling Nazis at some rally somewhere, and someone screams race. Yeah, you don't immediately react anymore because it's been wasted. The power of them evaporated. That's what I see as dangerous, not in the sombrero,
Yeah, and it's this crazy, like I said, it's this mental virus, because now we're sort of conditioned to believe that any person any person that isn't of color that wants to celebrate a rich culture is a racist for celebrating that culture, because wearing a sombrero means racism if you're not Mexican, when it could be, the context with which this individual was wearing a sombrero could be because he really, really likes the Mexican culture and he wants to celebrate it and he wants to show his support of it. It's not always a bad thing. And yet with sort of social justice, it's, if you're a white person, your job is to keep your hands at your sides, look forward, don't talk, don't speak unless spoken to, stand 6 feet behind all the women and people of color and gay people, and just hope that we let you stand in the room with us, because you really belong outside, is sort of how the culture, is sort of what the culture wants of us.
The one
now.
Really gets me is the whole fuss about dreadlocks, because we have ancient bog mummies and frozen Scandinavian corpses with dreadlocks. We know the Spartans wore dreadlocks. It's not a black thing. It's become this huge particular fuss that everyone latches onto. That one just, I don't know, for some reason that one really bugs me.
Yeah, I mean, I think
everybody.
Is there anything
go on.
I was just going to say everybody looks badass in dreadlocks.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular that really gets you about this whole atmosphere and situation? Is there one thing that stands out that really shit?
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason that I speak out about it, the whole reason that I'm even having this conversation with you today is because as a creative person, it just to no end, I never grow tired of fighting back against creative people trying to censor creative people. It is so it is such a terrible thing. Creative people of all people should fiercely fight and protect for the freedom of everyone to express everything, because those are our tools. Words and ideas, good and bad, are our tools that we use to communicate deeper and more resounding ideas with the public at large. And these these things that we're doing, the games that you create, the films that I make, not as much my films because they suck, but the books that I write, the songs people write, these are all attempts that we make to communicate larger ideas, to the public at large, and to handicap that, and to tell people that there are limits with the terms we can use and the perspectives and points of view we can speak from. It's gross. That's going to kill our society. You take away creativity, you take away entertainment, art from a society, and you've killed that society. That society has eroded to the point of sort of philosophical death in my mind.
That is what really, really gets me about this round of moral panic. I mean, I don't know how old you are, but I'm old enough to remember the satanic panic in the sort of late 80s of the 90s, and the vampire murder panics in the 90s as well. And I've studied my history, so I know all about Frederick Wortham and the fuss over Elvis's hips and all the rest of that stuff. And video nasties on this side of the Atlantic was a big fuss. We've seen all this before again and again, but looking at these previous external forces coming in and saying, this is bad, these comics corrupt children, Elvis is leading the youth astray, illegal to Satan to commit suicide, play your heavy metal records backwards, you'll be corrupted devil, whatever. And it was always this outside authoritarian groups, but it really seems to be people in our own communities turning on their own and trying to police them and tell them what to do. I have a really hard time understanding that and accepting it, really. It surprises me every time, and it's happened times now. Do you feel that same kind of betrayal? Do you think that's different?
Absolutely. Imagine if it was the heavy metal bands of the 80s that were telling the heavy metal bands that they couldn't sing about Satan because 4 kids killed themselves. Hang on just 1 second.
Okay.
I'm on a live podcast here. Oh. I didn't mean to derail the conversation like that. My roommate came home and he was in the bathroom shaving, and it was picking up here. So yeah, imagine if it was the bands themselves that were saying, because a tiny minority of people reacted poorly and reacted in a way that no one intended for them to react, therefore none of us can speak about it. And if you do try to speak about it, we're going to ostracize you from the community, publicly shame you, tar and feather you, and never allow you the possibility of redemption. Because that's where we're at with social justice. It's a zero-sum game. There is no redemption. Once you've been labeled sexist, misogynist, racist, homophobic, you are that for life to these people. There is no coming back, and they will reference whatever tangential connection there ever was to those ideologies to you. They don't care if 1 minute has passed or 50 years have passed. They will continue to make that tangential connection to keep you out of their communities forever. And it's particularly strong in fiction, I think, for a few reasons. But one of those reasons is because I think anyone can sit down at a laptop and call themselves a writer, and anyone could call themselves a particular type of writer. I'm a horror author. I'm a bizarro author. I'm a science fiction author. And So the idea of these purges of the unfit and the sullied, the idea that we have to cull the herd and exile those that are not worthy sort of is strong and fierce in the world of fiction writing, because anybody can make a claim to it, and so these people get particularly indignant and fierce and crazy and consider themselves the police of the genre. They self-appoint themselves as the policemen of the genre, and they walk around, like you said with the invasion of the body snatchers. They're the ones walking around pointing the finger at each other, and they'll stop and say, "Witch, you gone forever. Drown her." And if she floats, I forget which. I always get it wrong. Whether if they float, they were. When they die, if they float, they weren't a witch. If
they're a witch. If they sink and die, then they weren't. Yeah.
But they're dead either way, and that's sort of how we treat each other in the writing community. Is once we've put that scarlet letter on you, once we've branded you, you're done. Don't even try to come back. They will tell you both, don't even try to come back, because 10 years from now, I will remember your face, I will remember your name, and you are not allowed here anymore. And it's this, this need to sort of keep the numbers small. And I think that need comes from the fact that nobody's making any money. Economically speaking, fiction writing is not a financially lucrative community of people. So the bigger it gets, the more the sort of pie has to be separated and split amongst the whole. And so they work very hard to keep those numbers small. And even the slightest indiscretion gets you branded, tarred, exiled, and gone forever. Don't even try to come back. And yeah. the thing that I try to get across to these guys is, and it's all guys, by the way, it's all men that believe that they have to protect their women, even though they call themselves feminists. The men call themselves feminists. They're the ones that dive in front of every woman that has the slightest, the slightest bit of friction that happens. They have to dive in front of. I will protect you. I will save you, fair maiden. And I don't even know where I was going.
There's an interesting study. There's an interesting study about that. That if you remove benevolent sexism towards women, basically if you treat women the same as men, it's read anti-female sexism by people observing this behavior. So like if you don't open the door for anybody, that's seen as sexist towards women. It's really interesting. It's not a very big study, but it's just really interestingly indicative of that. Do you follow the yearly at all?
The yearly what? You broke up a little bit.
The yearly fight over the Hugo Awards.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The sad puppies, the rabid puppies. Vox Day is a white nationalist, racist, literal Nazi, and any association with him at all makes you a white nationalist, makes you a Nazi racist, makes you a member of the KKK, and I haven't studied it closely enough to know if those things are true about Vox Day in particular, but I know enough to know that it's basically a witch hunt, and that this idea of sad puppies was created with the best of intentions. It was created because political correctness and social justice came in, and this giant group of science fiction and fantasy authors started seeing all these awards. And first of all, fucking award. An award isn't going to get you any more notoriety, any more readers, any more sales than anything else. It's a popularity contest, and it's about ego. It's about the fact that as writers, we sit in a dark room by ourselves and we crank out these manuscripts, and by and large, we get very little feedback from what we write. And so the idea of these awards is this, it feeds this ego this ego is so big that it believes that it has all the answers to the world's problems within the context of these books that we write, and yet we don't get the sort of accolades that we believe we deserve. So we create awards for ourselves that make us feel like we've finally achieved what we set out to achieve. And the Hugo Awards is no different. I don't think you could ever point to a Hugo Award-winning author that made their career because they got that award. That's just not how it works. It's not how this stuff works. But these guys started seeing that more and more this award was going to I'm sorry. What did you say?
You cut out for a sec.
Oh, okay, yeah. So more these guys started seeing these awards go more and more to people, not because of the merit of their work, but because of the color of their skin, their sexuality, or even the sexuality of the characters. They were awarding books that had gay female lead characters, as opposed to awarding the best book of the year. And again, I'm not an award. I don't like awards to begin with, so I can only defend these people's sort of drawing their line in the sand and saying it stops with the Hugos. We're going to protect the sanctity of the award. Like, fuck the award. Yeah. But I get where they're coming from. They're ideologically, they are opposed to equality of outcome instead of equality of opportunity. We all have an opportunity to write the best book of the year, and the best book of the year should win the award. Not, we shouldn't control the outcome based on, well, an award with a black main character hasn't won in 7 years, so it's time this year we're awarding it to some book that has a black main character, and all other books are excluded. So this group of people came together and decided that they were going to try to manipulate the award in their own way, that they were going to try to counterbalance this ideology, this equality of outcome ideology, with their own equality of outcome on the other side to try to balance it out. And so now you've got sort of two ideologies that two groups competing for equality of outcome, and it's not, I don't support it, but I understand why. I don't condemn sad puppies, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing in a way that most liberal creative types don't. They just scream, Vox Day is a racist and a white nationalist and literally a Nazi. It's not about that. And maybe he is, I don't know. But
I'd say Vox Day is definitely a cunt. But that doesn't necessarily.
I don't care.
It doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong about this.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. I don't care. Like I refuse to first identify people by their gender, and then identify them by their color of their skin, and then identify them by their sexuality, and then identify them by their politics, and then finally whether or not I like them as a person. Like, no, that's not how I refuse to sort of label and categorize people in that way. Like you said, we grew up in the 90s where 90s liberals, our mantra was don't label us, man. Don't label me. I'm just me. I'm an individual. I'm a person, and I want to be sort of respected and communicated with based on the merit of my personality, not on all of these external factors. And that's far gone out the window.
The thing that really gets me about the Hugos is I think all of this was avoidable. I mean, these people had concerns and issues, whether you believed in them or agreed with them or not. And those issues could have been examined and addressed and taken seriously, but they weren't. Instead, people just, like you say, screamed racist or whatever. And the fighting's been so vicious precisely because the stakes are so small. And I think there's also this inferiority complex. It wants to be taken literature. And I think that's driving part of it as well. They don't want this kind of pulpy blasters and spaceships kind of fiction winning awards. They want the more literary science fiction, want to be taken seriously by the literary establishment. And I just feel like saying, dude, she's never going to fuck you. Give it up. Just be happy being you.
Right. Yeah. If the award is so important to you, make your own award.
Yeah, well, that seems to be the way things are going. It seems like the kind of sad puppies and that have shifted over to concentrating more on the Dragon Awards and turning that into more of a egalitarian, merit-based award and just leaving the Hugos to rot. And that might be the best option.
Yeah, I mean, trying to fight equality of outcome with equality of outcome certainly isn't that's not going to get anybody anywhere.
Yeah, well, it's like you said, I don't necessarily agree with the viewpoints and so on of the sad puppies or the rabid puppies, but I see their point, I see their argument, I see what they're complaining about, I see the bias on the other side and their desire to counterbalance that. I may not agree with their tactics or their viewpoints, but I can see the point. I can see that there's a problem that needs to be addressed and hasn't been. Wasn't there that case, is it the Fantasy Awards where they changed the bust from being H.P. Lovecraft?
Yeah, I don't know if they've fully changed it yet, but he was removed from the bust itself, and there was basically no resistance from the. There's a huge community there's like a subcategory of horror called weird fiction or Lovecraftian fiction specifically, and these are publishers and editors who specifically edit and publish stories and novels that are set in H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos or outside of the Cthulhu mythos, but have a general Lovecraftian feeling to them. And that's called weird fiction. And what was the name of the World Fantasy? Is that the name?
I think that's it. Yeah,
the World Fantasy Award has always, since its inception, has had a bust of H.P. Lovecraft himself as their award that they hand out. And then suddenly, and it was just about the same, it was around the same time period, 2010, 2011, H.P. Lovecraft was a racist, Nazi sympathizer, white nationalist, and deserves to have everything ever written about him burned and discarded, started to become this mantra within the writing culture. And again, there are people who have based their entire careers and made their entire living and put their kids through college by editing Lovecraftian fiction and Cthulhu mythos fiction throughout the 90s when it was lucrative, when you could make very good livings off of writing, who just sort of laid down and died in the face of that and went, you're right, it's time to change. Let's be progressive. Let's change. And I personally, I have a you can search my website, kevinthestrange.com. If you just type in H.P. Lovecraft, I wrote a big scathing article about this myself, just based around the hypocrisy of it, based around the hypocrisy of coming out as a progressive voice to remove Lovecraft's bust, while at the same time making a living off of H.P. Lovecraft's name. Like, your only claim to fame as an editor is that you edit Lovecraftian fiction, and then you're going to roll over just as quickly and say, "Oh, you're right. He was a racist and a terrible person, motherfucker." Can I cuss on your show? Is that okay?
Yeah, swear all your fucking.
Motherfucker, you've made your fucking living. You've made hundreds of thousands of dollars over decades by promoting this guy's work. You didn't stop and think about his racism and Nazi, sympathizing when you decided to become a Lovecraftian editor in the fucking 1990s? No, it was easy then because no one was fucking pushing back on you. No one cared, or nobody knew enough about Lovecraft as an individual to know that he was absolutely a racist. He was absolutely a Nazi sympathizer, and
he's dead. He can't hurt you.
He's dead as fuck, and he also was promoting Nazism at the same time everyone else was promoting Nazism. Time magazine had Hitler on the fucking cover around the same time that H.P. Lovecraft was saying maybe the final solution is a good idea. He was part of the, and everybody gets shit when they say this, but he was part of the culture. But his leanings towards white supremacy at the time that he was doing that is no different than these people rolling over and laying down and dying in the face of progressivism today. Like, he wasn't pushing back because no one was pushing back. He wasn't saying these are bad ideas because people were all celebrating the ideas. And it's sort of the same situation that most of the authors are in today, where they're pushing this social justice and this censorship because they're afraid of the. I'm not saying he was afraid. I'm not apologizing for Lovecraft at all. But I'm saying that it's difficult to push back. This conversation that you and I are having is so rare because it's difficult to push back against whatever the prevailing ideology of the day is. And that was it's not like he was a racist in a time when that was a bad thing. He was a racist in the time where he was supported from everyone for doing that. He had no reason to think that ideology.
I've got an old school book from the 1920s that talks about eugenics in glowing terms in its science.
Absolutely. Until the Nazi internment camps, that was considered to be like a hot science. That was a hot science to be a part of, and eugenics was something that was celebrated. And there are like these creepy American commercials that would play on radio that would talk about how, basically like, do you have a slutty daughter? She should probably be committed and sterilized and not allowed to procreate, because if she has kids, they're going to be slutty kids, and we don't want that. We want pure children in our society, so let's get your daughter sterilized today. I mean, that's the world the guy lived in.
Yeah.
And so tearing down all effigies of H.P. Lovecraft and sacrificing him to the progressive gods is what it is. I would just like to see the fucking community that's become wealthy off of his likeness to at least stand up for him a little bit, at least push back a little bit. And what we're going to have here, what I predicted in my rant about it on my website, was we're going to lose the term Lovecraftian within 5 years. Lovecraftian is going to be replaced with Cthulhu mythos or mythos fiction, and the association with Lovecraft is going to be gone. His characters and his universe are going to survive while banishing the man himself from existence, as though there is no creator. Cthulhu, the Necronomicon, Arkham, all these Lovecraftian ideas are just sort of going to have been born of nothing and sort of always existed as a playground for horror authors to become wealthy with.
Yeah. To put another spin on it, another way you can look at it is, if we erase him, then we're erasing those attitudes. We're erasing the past. We're erasing that opportunity to learn, to understand as well. Which is valuable for anti-racism, to be able to learn.
I don't think it's just valuable. I think it's one of the key tools. It's one of the key tools to avoid the past. And that's why I talk a lot about, whenever I talk about equality of outcome, and why I link it to Marxism, because in Marxist cultures, people fucking starve and die. And yet, Fidel Castro dies this week, and we have our president won't talk about Standing Rock, won't talk about people having water hoses blasted in their fucking faces in sub-zero temperatures. Our president's too busy to condemn that publicly, but within 48 hours of Fidel Castro's death, he's calling him a great leader when millions of people died under his fucking regime.
Yeah,
and that's
we're coming up on the hour, so shall we say lighter at the end? That's where our interests cross over. You're working on a board game, yeah?
Yeah, man, yeah.
A little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't know when it's going to come out or anything. I've never tried to do anything like this before, and I have to try to keep my sort of creative attention where it belongs. Otherwise, I float off into these weird areas that are non-productive and are just going to delay the release of my books. But man, I've really been compelled over the last few months to create a tabletop board game, and it's a tabletop board game based on one of my fiction worlds. Which is a short story called The Nowhere, is where this reality sort of manifests, and it's this post-apocalyptic world where these portals to a monster dimension have opened, and these monsters made of monsters pour out. These giant monsters made of smaller monsters sort of pour out of these portals and terrorize the post-apocalyptic landscape, and these small pockets of surviving humanity hire these people they call the hunters, and the hunters have the tools it takes to take down a nowhere beast and sort of drive them back through to their other dimension. And the story focuses on one particular hunter and one particular nowhere beast that he's fighting. But I wanted to make the idea was I wanted to make a tabletop board game that is just nonstop monster fighting from the moment the word go to the very end of the game. The only focus is fighting monsters. And so I've been doing my best to develop it in as simple terms as possible, because one of the motivating factors for me getting into wanting to make my own game was I find it difficult to find games that I enjoy. There's very few tabletop games that you can just sit down and throw down without really having to know very many rules to it. One game that I really like is a game called Zombies, and it's a tabletop game that involves tiles, and on the tiles there is written how many zombies, how many hearts, which is life, and how many bullets for your guns appear on the tile. And whatever player's turn it is, he chooses where the zombies, the hearts, and the bullets go, and each player draws a new tile. And so you build the board game as you go, and the idea is the first person to get to the helipad wins and escapes the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
And there is no game master. There is no game master, and you literally, each player has to create a strategy every turn, whether he's going to place these items in a way that's beneficial to him, or he's going to place them in a way that hinders his opponent from getting to the helipad before him. And it also involves action cards that you can play to also, to either help yourself or hinder your opponent. And I really like that quick game style, and the idea that you don't have to have sort of a dungeon master or someone controlling the monsters or controlling the story, that you, as the players, you collectively build the story as you go. And I find it hard to it's hard to find games like that. Most of the games that I found that have really cool themes are bogged down in rules, are bogged down in statistics, and end up just being a game of arguing over the math, and having a game master that sort of rules over the whole thing and is kind of like, depending on his personality, he's either an asshole and makes you lose every time, or is too easy on you and lets you win every time. And it's hard to find enough players and dungeon masters to get games like that together. And I've always failed at trying to build D&D clubs and stuff, because it always ends up breaking down and derailing into arguing over rules. But I've never not finished a game of zombies, for example. I finished every single game.
Played Zombicide.
Zombicide, I haven't played it, but I think it's similar to Zombies.
It's similar in a lot of ways. It's a lot more frantic, and it's a little bit more complicated, but not too much. I think you might like that, and it's cooperative as well. So there's no games master. So, but I think you'd like that. Well, if you need a hand to this game, feel free to hit me up anytime.
Yeah, definitely. I'm still in the process of creating the general rules for it right now, but once I have enough of it laid out, I'm going to definitely hit you up and let you take a look at the overview and see if you want to help sort of refine it and help me get it down to, like I said, I want it to be a game that you just sit down with between 2 and 4 of your friends and throw down. And it's not a game that'll ever get bogged down in rules. You just kill monsters. And the first, the one that kills the most monsters wins, and that's it.
Yeah, sounds cool. Okay, do you want to pimp out your websites and stuff? Tell people where they can find you?
Sure, yeah. You can find me online at kevinthestrange.com. That's the word "the" in the middle of my name, so Kevin Strange, kevinthestrange.com, and that's basically where you can find all the updates on my new books. You can find, I do movie reviews, I do social commentary rants quite often, and I also put up free short stories and novel excerpts. I'm doing a monthly serial of one of my novels right now, and so every month you get a new chapter for a novel for free to read if you want to sort of jump in and see if you like what I write. And I'm also online on Facebook / Kevin the Strange, Twitter / Kevin the Strange, and you can find all my social media and stuff on my website. That's all listed there, so that's where you can find me. And all my books are on Amazon and whatnot, but you can click those links through on my website. There's no reason to list everything when it's all centralized there on my site.
Is there one thing you've done that you really would like people to check out?
Oh, geez. I mean, I've written and directed 6 feature films, and I've written like 13 books now, so it's hard to kind of center on one thing that sort of defines what I am and what I do, but I really like a novel that I wrote called Vampire Guts in Nuketown, and it's a novel about a post-apocalyptic world that's ruled by feral mutant vampire monsters, and even the people that have survived this apocalypse have become mutated in some way, and the main character's name is Guts, and he's basically tasked with killing all the vampires on the planet, and his sort of mutant power is he can slice his stomach open and has manual control over his intestines. So he uses his intestines to kill big feral vampire monsters, and it's sort of like the video game Splatterhouse on steroids.
I love that game so much.
It's a great game, and I sort of wanted to do the literary equivalent of that, where every page is sort of splattered in violence and blood and weird mutant sex. And that I think is, I guess if anything was going to be the most indicative of my style. I do a lot of different types of writing, but that one is probably the coolest.
Fabulous. All right. So I've been talking with Kevin Strange. Thanks for talking to me. It's been great. I think if you like my stuff, you'll like his. And if you like his stuff, you'll like mine. So hopefully it's all good. I'll say goodbye. Kevin, say goodbye.
Thank you very much for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation today. I hope to have many more like it.
Yeah, anytime. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.